بكركي كان التأييد.
Good afternoon on this Saturday, May 24th. I'm Yumna Naufal. These are today's headlines. Michel Sleiman says goodbye to the presidency, warning of the vacuum that threatens the political order in the country. Pope Francis is in Jordan. This is the start of a Middle East tour aimed at boosting ties with Muslim and Jews, as well as easing an old age rift within Christianity. An activist and one medic in Syria claim President Bashar al-Assad's regime used chlorine gas to attack opposition-held towns in Hama and Idlib. President Michel Sleiman says that it's time to establish a national defense strategy as a natural way to build the nation, warning of the presidential vacuum that threatens the political order in the country. On the occasion of his last day, as he steps down from the presidency, as well as the Resistance and Liberation Day, he says, quote, "I urge the rival parties to establish a defense strategy to build the state and develop the democratic system." This was his farewell speech at the Babda Palace. He pointed out that liberation remains partial if the state's sovereignty is not complete. Lebanon marks tomorrow, on May 25th, the occasion of the Resistance and Liberation Day that commemorates the Israeli army's withdrawal from the south in May 2000. The outgoing president said at the end of his 6-year term that the Babda Declaration is praised by the international community as it is the only way to disassociate Lebanon from the neighboring conflicts. At the end of his speech, Sleiman thanked those who believed and cooperated with him, calling on the youth to form non-sectarian groups and engage in establishing a civil state. Former Prime Minister Saad Hariri warns that avoid risks turning the presidency into a target for political blackmail as he bids farewell President Michel Sleiman. The last day of Sleiman's term is an occasion to declare two realities, he said in his statement. The first is that the majority of the Lebanese recognize Sleiman's wise wisdom in managing the country's affairs and insistence on national dialogue, as well as when President Sleiman bid farewell to the Lebanese from Babda Palace, he said the second reality is an honest call to deal with the presidential void as a serious risk that threatens the safety of the democratic system and turns the presidency into a target for permanent blackmail. He also said the next president should commit to the Babda Declaration, which is essential to protect the nation against interference in foreign affairs. The Saudi ambassador to Lebanon, Ali Awad Asiri, visited the Babda Palace as well to bid farewell to Sleiman, hailing the outgoing president's performance throughout his 6-year tenure. He said he had the chance as Saudi Arabia's ambassador since 2009 to follow up with Sleiman in many stages. Throughout all this period, he was the wise leader, he said, who had no concern other than his country's supreme interests and how to promote national unity among his people. Sleiman, Asiri said, was always keen on implementing the constitution and ensuring security and stability for Lebanon. Sleiman, for his part, presented Asiri with the National Order of the Cedar Medal Commander grade. The Saudi envoy said he was proud to receive such a medal, which he described as a witness to the depth of brotherly ties between Saudi Arabia and Lebanon. Lebanese Forces leader Samir Jaja is calling for amending the articles of the labor law, protecting women and children from illegal labor and organizing the work of syndicates. He said, quote, "Our cause is the human being, their freedom, livelihood, and basic rights. And as a popular party that seeks equal opportunities, we will not rest until those are completely achieved. We call on the state to take all necessary procedures and place them in the service of workers." Jaja said Lebanon today is going through tough living conditions caused by the ongoing practices of the guardianship phase, which are based on political elimination and on employing unqualified people in the wrong posts. He said at his press conference that President Sleiman said himself that the army must be a serious force which cannot be weakened, and he laments a president who has worked hard for the country to protect the state is being attacked in such a way. Pope Francis, which you are watching on our screen right now, is in Jordan. This is the start of his Middle East tour aimed at boosting ties with Muslims and Jews in the region, as well as easing an age-old rift within Christianity. As he stepped onto the red carpet at the Amman airport, his white robes flapping in the hot desert wind, he was greeted by officials and 2 children dressed in traditional costume who handed him a bouquet of irises, the national flower of Jordan. The Vatican has billed Francis' first visit to the Middle East as a pilgrimage of prayer, saying he will shun bulletproof vehicles in favor of open-top cars, despite security concerns. Speaking to reporters on his plane, the 77-year-old Pope said he felt like the biblical prophet Daniel heading to the lion's den. The Mass that is currently taking place, as you can see, was preceded by King Abdullah II welcoming him. He is then expected to head to the site of the River of Jordan, in the evening, where many believe Jesus was baptized by John in the Bible. Activists and a medic in war-torn Syria claim President Bashar al-Assad's regime used chlorine gas a day earlier to attack opposition-held towns in Hama and Idlib. The reports could not be confirmed by independent sources, including the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a Britain-based monitoring group. Activists in Idlib province in northwestern Syria, meanwhile, distributed videos showing patients, including children, being treated in field hospitals for apparent suffocation. Western backers of Syria's anti-Assad revolt and rights group have previously said the regime is believed to have used chlorine gas to attack rebel-held areas. The United States has said that such allegations could not be proven, and if they were, the attacks would have been in the contravention of the Chemical Weapons Convention that Damascus signed as part of a U.S.-Russian deal to clear Syria of its chemical arsenal. Coming up next, a video goes viral on YouTube, and you're going to want to see this. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Future TV. Suspected al-Qaeda fighters have launched a series of attacks on army camps and public buildings in a southeastern town in Yemen, according to security sources. The attacks on Friday night in Siyun, the second biggest town in Hadramaut province, led to fierce fighting in which at least 25 were killed, according to Yemen's defense ministry. Of the 15 dead, 15 were al-Qaeda fighters and 10 were soldiers. The fighters arrived in 15 pickup vehicles from desert areas outside Siyun and proceeded to attack various government buildings, a local Yemeni security official has said. A billionaire businessman at the heart of a $2.6 billion US state bank scam, the largest fraud case since the country's 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran, was executed. Authorities put Mahafarid Amir Kosvari, also known as Amir Mansour Ariya, to death at Evin prison just north of the capital, Tehran. The report says the execution comes after Iran's Supreme Court upheld his death sentence. Khosravi's lawyer, Ghulam Ali Riahi, was quoted by news website Khabar Online as saying that his client was put to death without any notice. The fraud involved using forged documents to get credit at one of Iran's top financial institutions, Bank Sadirat, to purchase assets including state-owned companies like major steel producer Khuzestan Steel Co. Libya's renegade general Khalifa Haftar is leading a military campaign against the country's Islamist-led government and militants. However, his past life in America and old ties to the CIA are likely to be a stumbling block on his road to power. Following his botched February coup attempt, when he appeared on television announcing the dissolution of the government, only to be scoffed at by the then Prime Minister Ali Zaidan as ridiculous, launched this week Operation Dignity to rid Libya of terrorists and corrupt officials. He was able to bring together Gaddafi-era officers and rebel militias from the east and the west of the country to build his self-proclaimed Libyan National Army, which launched attacks on Islamist militias in Benghazi last week and stormed the Islamist-dominated parliament in the capital of Tripoli. Pro-Russian insurgents have prevented at least half of the election districts in the embattled east of the country, this is Ukraine we're talking about, from preparing for Sunday's presidential elections. Volodymyr Hrynyak, the chief of the Public Security Department at the Ukrainian Interior Ministry, said that 17 out of 34 district election commissions in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions are not operating because their offices have either been seized or blocked by armed men. Hrynyak's update was reported by the Interfax news agency. The insurgents have controlled parts of Ukraine for weeks. Following their declaration of independence earlier this month, they pledged to derail the vote, which they regard as an election in a neighboring country. They remain defiant, although Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Friday that he's prepared to work with the election winner. Thailand's former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra and dozens of prominent politicians have been detained by the military a day after it took control of government. Yingluck and Nwachurk Bonsekson, her temporary replacement, were among the 39 prominent figures who on Friday reported to a military facility in Bangkok. A Thai military spokesman who gave his name as Colonel Virachon said that all those who had reported to the base had been taken into detention. Now, the Reuters news agency quoted another senior military official as saying Yingluck's sister and brother-in-law were among those being held. The two relatives have held top political posts. The Mali government and the three main rebel groups in the northern desert have signed a ceasefire deal to end days of violence in the Tuareg heartland, the African Union's negotiator is announcing. He said, "We have just signed an agreement which opens the way for a ceasefire." Mauritanian President and African Union Chairman Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz said on Mali public television early Saturday after brokering the deal. Abdelaziz cut short a visit to Rwanda to hold the urgent ceasefire talks with the Tuareg rebel groups, National Movement for the Liberation of Azawad, High Council for the Unity of Azawad, and the Arab Movement of the Azawad. 1 minute, you're a 17-year-old kid in the talent show in your high school, and you've rehearsed Billie Jean by Michael Jackson for years, so you busted out. A couple of days later, over 9 million people have seen you perform on YouTube. Brett Nichols, a junior at Pittman High in Turlock, California, is a global star today. This type of world attention, he said, might swamp some, but he plans to get into the filmmaking and choreography field. "I got to admit," he said, "it's been interesting. I've never ever experienced so much so quickly." And the reviews of his Michael Jackson-like dance skills are off the charts. Even MTV said that his footwork is better than the Michael Jackson's Billie Jean hologram. Take a look. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Let me remind you of our top stories. Sheikh Sulaiman says goodbye to the presidency, warning of the vacuum that threatens the political order in the country. Pope Francis is in Jordan. This is his first leg of the Middle East trip that he's taking in order to revive ties with other religions. And in Syria, activists and a medic claim President Bashar al-Assad's regime used chlorine gas to attack opposition-held towns in Hama and Idlib. Those are your headlines here on this Saturday, live from Future Studios in Beirut. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you a good weekend. Take care.
مذكرة بكركي كانت تأييد